All right, we're going to call this meeting to order in just about 2 minutes. About 2 minutes, we'll call the meeting to order. Been 2 minutes. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is the House Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications Committee calling it to order. We have two bills on the agenda today. We have one that Chairman Geisinger has that I think will be fairly short. We did not send this, commit this to subcommittee. Can bring it straight to committee. And in respect to Chairman Geisinger, I'm going to let him bring it straight from committee and recognize Chairman Geisinger to present your House Bill 769. And what's your number? 21. Hit your button there so I can turn it on.
Is it on? Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're working with LC number 285937. Now, when I say that this is a housekeeping bill, it truly is, so don't become suspicious. Over the last 13 years, it was not then called the Governor's Department of Consumer Protection. I believe it was called the Consumer Utilities Council. Has been keeping paper copies so that the public could come by and look at them. Today, unfortunately, or fortunately for the state of Georgia, that information is all online, and the original copies are still kept with the Public Service Commission. All this legislation does is eliminate the need to keep those copies, which is costing us about $3,000 a year. It truly is a housekeeping bill. Mr. Chairman, I ask for favorable consideration.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee on House Bill 769 of the author? No questions. What is the? We have a motion to do pass. Have a second. Have a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Say no. It's passed unanimously. Chairman Geisinger, House Bill 769 passes this committee with a do-pass recommendation, and you're eligible to take this to Rules Committee and put in the proper paperwork to get it heard in the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We have... Next on the agenda, we have House Bill 855. It's LC 362056S, and is that what everybody has? The author of the legislation, Chairman Mark Hamilton, is here, and you're recognized to present the bill. Let me turn you on here. Turn his mic on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm happy and proud to bring before you House Bill 855. Let me give you just a very brief historical perspective of this before I explain the bill. I first want to recognize and thank Chairman Parsons for his leadership and his involvement in this. As many of you may have been at this December meeting. Matter of fact, I was remarking to someone today, that was prior to session, and as many of us business owners and other people do, we're pretty busy before session, but I came to that meeting, and I was very glad I did, because I heard a lot of discussions that day, and I really learned a tremendous amount about the UAF, and so I started doing some digging once that happens. And again, I appreciate the the chairman for doing that and the committee members that I've worked with. I also appreciate the stakeholders and the PSC staff I also specifically want to thank Billy Horn and Representative Horn and Representative Martin as we early started talking about this. And what I learned, and I was here in 2010, but I wasn't that involved in the details. I wasn't on this committee at this time. And what I learned was that in 2010, this General Assembly, or the House of this General Assembly, passed House Bill 168. And when we passed House Bill 168, it said that the high-cost portion of the fund was going to be eliminated immediately at that particular time. That provision passed the House with greater than a two-thirds majority. It went to the Senate. The Senate did their perfecting work and changed 168 dramatically and made a number of changes. And one of the changes was, instead of ending it immediately, it just prolonged it for 20 years. It gave a provision to either elect to become a rate of return or not. And even though at the time, during testimony prior to that, there was only 8 companies that were participating in this fund, they made the decision, 20 companies chose to participate. And they probably make that decision. I don't know what their motivation was, but they made it for a number of reasons. But since that time, in those 2 years alone, and I think that the intent of this committee, the intent of the House certainly, was to tell the companies that participated, this fund needs to go away. You need to develop your own business model, your own strategies, the things that are necessary for you to become self-efficient, that this safety net is no longer going to be there. That's basically the will of what we're trying to do. And to my understanding, we were told that there would only be a few that participated. It went from 8 to 20. 20 elected to participate in this. Only 17 are actually participating in the fund itself, but 20 elected to be eligible for that. And since that time, the fund that year was about $9 million, 8 companies. And I've provided a handout in your folder there that you can see. During that time, we've gone from 8 to 20, or 17 that actually, to be accurate, only 17 of the 20 received that. It was at $9.3 million at that point. The following year, instead of going down, it actually went up. It went to $12.4 million. The next year, it went to over $16 million. And it's my understanding that today, the request for the latest round is over $20 million. Now, we've heard lots of testimony that there's a lot of concern with what's going on in the feds, and there is a lot of that concern. But we have that concern always. And in fact, I think that's one of the reasons that many of these companies want to keep this available, so that when the feds do things, they can go ahead and continue. And I see this over the next 18 years. I see this fund going from 9 to 12 to 16 to going to a huge number. And so that's the reason that I crafted House Bill 855. 855 says, and I've told the members of the subcommittee, we've had 2 full subcommittee hearings. We've had numerous discussions. We've heard from expert testimony. We've heard from witnesses. Did pass out a subcommittee yesterday after all these debates, passed out unanimous. 855, when I was approached by to look at this, and I started looking at it and trying to figure out if this is something I want to get involved in, one of the things I said to myself is that I don't think 0 is reasonable. Not that we made a mistake 2 years ago, but as a business person, 2 years is too quick. I also think that 20 years is too long. And so I chose 3 years. 3 years, I think, is a reasonable amount of time. If you look back when business was going well in 2007, much of the telecommunications industry looks for a 7 or 8 year payback. We're close to that time. So there's a 3-year time period. I also said, let's don't phase it out blunt. Let's give the people to build into their business plans the knowledge that this number is going to decline. So I chose $9 million because $9 million was approximately the amount of money that we allocated that year, or that was allocated, or approved by the PSC when this happened. So $9 million, $6 million, $3 million, and then the 4th year it goes to 0. We've met with PSC staff to make sure that the legislation is written in a way that they can administer it. There's no questions about that. Matter of fact, we did the sub for that specific reason. They brought us information that said this is how it has to be stated, so we've done that. And so, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I would ask for your favorable consideration for House Bill 855 as written, because it does what I think we all want to do, or many of us want to do, is to end this fund, but at the same time gives the companies that are participating in this a reasonable opportunity to build their business plans and other things to allow it to happen. And I will be happy to, and by the way, one final thing is I've been completely open to this. There are several public affairs individuals and organizations that have taken advantage to come into my office on numerous occasions. There are others that have chosen not to. I've met with business owners. I met with several people again today and say no matter where this process leads us, I will continue to work with the stakeholders to try to find the legislation that accomplishes these things. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you or the committee members might have.
Thank you. I think you will have questions. I wanted to ask Chairman Martin, if you'll push your button and give us a subcommittee report, I'd appreciate it. It's 12.
Please, the Chair. I apologize to the Chairman and members of the committee. I was delayed in another meeting, but I appreciate your time and appreciate your patience with me, Mr. Chairman. I would like to report to you that your telecom subcommittee of your full committee reported out with a do-pass recommendation LC 362056S by committee substitute for House Bill 855. That action was taken yesterday.
Thank you, Chairman. All right, we have a subcommittee report. The author has made a presentation. Do we have questions from the members of the committee? We have a question from number 15. Who's a 15 then? Representative Dudgeon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman Hamilton, I wasn't around, obviously, as a freshman for that whole deal with the previous bill, but I'll ask you a hypothetical question. If let's say we didn't have this high cost fund and we didn't have a UAF for high costs, and someone came to this committee this year and said, I've got this really good idea. I want to generate this fund that we're going to subsidize and generate for high cost landlines by charging customers across the state of Georgia. Do you think that bill would have any chance here in this committee?
Well, I appreciate the question from the floor leader of the chair of the Education Committee and my good friend, delegation member, Representative Dudgeons. But I think the answer to that question is pretty obvious.
Yeah.
That in today's time, we recognize, I've heard testimony from in discussions about some of these businesses that are participating have gone on for years and years and years. And I don't think that we, as a state, that we would have any interest in saying, how can we help a business get into business by subsidizing them with no realistic opportunity or plan to ever get off of that subsidy? And that would be my answer.
And that's rooted in my question, to think for good governance, if we wouldn't do it again today, the fact that we're still doing it, let's phase it out and move on.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Chairman Hamilton, you've done a really good job explaining the bill. And we've taken, there have been 2 subcommittee meetings in which testimony was taken. We don't normally take testimony in the full committee. What is the will of the committee? We have a motion to pass, do pass. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of House Bill 855 by committee substitute signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay. House Bill 855 is passed with a do-pass recommendation from this full committee, and we'll go on the consent calendar, I think it is.
Right.
And it will be eligible for you to take to rules and ask for it to be considered there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Appreciate your help.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Anything else from members of the committee? That's the last bill we have. Anything anybody would like to add? Any further business? If not, this committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending.